At 99 years old, Dick Van Dyke still smiles like he did in the 60s, that wide, charming grin, that unforgettable twinkle in his eyes. To most people, he's the nicest man in Hollywood, a true legend who danced on rooftops with chimneys, solved crimes in diagnosis murder, and made generations fall in love with comedy. But behind that smile was something he kept secret. For over 70 years, he worked with hundreds of actors. Most were kind, some were even like family, but 6 of them he never forgot. For decades, he refused to speak badly about anyone. He didn't want headlines, he didn't want drama. But as he approaches 100, something inside him changed. "It's time," he recently said during a rare interview. "Before I go, people should know. I didn't like working with everyone." The interviewer was shocked. "Mr. Van Dyke, are you saying you hated working with some actors?" Dick leaned forward, whispering almost like a child confessing a secret. "I hated 6 of them." And that's when the world leaned in. Fans wanted to know, who were they? What could he, the most cheerful man in showbiz, possibly hate? But before he gave names, Dick wanted to tell the stories. "There's a reason I never said it before," he explained. "Some of these people are legends, some are gone. Some are still around, but what they did stuck with me for years." And that's when he began, one by one. Not just names, but the full truth. Stories from the golden age of television, painful moments hidden behind laughter, fights behind the curtain, and words he never forgot. He wasn't looking for revenge. He just wanted peace. I think people need to know that kindness matters, even in Hollywood. The first name would surprise everyone, because this person was America's sweetheart. And Dick Van Dyke couldn't stand her. The sweetheart who wasn't so sweet. She was a beloved star. Perfect hair, bright smile. A regular on every magazine cover. To the world, she was pure class. To Dick, she was poison. "We were working on a TV special," he said. "She was the guest star. Everyone adored her. But the moment the cameras stopped rolling, she changed." Dick remembered the first rehearsal. He walked in, ready to greet her with his usual charm. "I said, 'It's an honor to work with you.' She didn't even look at me, just said, 'I'm only doing this for the money.'" At first, he laughed. Maybe she was joking. She wasn't. During every scene, she demanded the spotlight. If Dick had a funny line, she asked the writers to cut it. If he had a dance number, she refused to rehearse it. "She made me feel small," he said, "and not because of talent, but ego." He never named her in interviews even when reporters asked. "Some things are better left unsaid," he would reply. "But now? She was the first person I worked with who made me question if I belonged in the business. I felt like a joke to her." He didn't say her name immediately. He gave a clue instead. "She once played a nun and a singer. People thought she was the kindest soul, but to me, she was cruel." Fans immediately guessed. Could it be Julie Andrews? Dick only smiled when asked. "I'll let people decide. But let's just say, Mary Poppins wasn't always practically perfect." People gasped. How could that be? But Dick wasn't done. The next actor was someone he called a true nightmare. And this one almost made him quit Hollywood entirely. The comedian who crossed the line. "He was supposed to be funny," Dick Van Dyke said, shaking his head slowly. "But off camera, he was the cruelest man I ever met." This next name wasn't a surprise to everyone in Hollywood. Those who had worked behind the scenes whispered about him. Directors rolled their eyes. Assistants quit mid-production. But to the public, he was a legend, a king of comedy, a man who filled theaters with laughter. Dick met him in the late 70s on the set of a primetime variety show. Both were scheduled to appear in a sketch. 2 comedy icons side by side. It should have been magic. Instead, it was a disaster. "From the first rehearsal, he mocked me," Dick recalled. "He said I was too old, that my kind of comedy was dead." At first, Dick laughed it off. But then he kept going. He made fun of my voice, my walk, even the way I smiled every single day. Dick tried to keep the peace. He thought maybe the comedian was insecure or nervous, but then came the insult he never forgot. He said, "You're only funny because people feel sorry for you." That one stung. Everyone on set froze. Even the producers didn't know what to say, but Dick stayed quiet, not because he was weak, but because he didn't want to give the man the satisfaction. I finished that sketch, and I swore I'd never work with him again. And he didn't. Years passed. The comedian's fame faded. His bad behavior finally caught up to him. Dick, on the other hand, kept going, with grace, with kindness, without stepping on anyone else to get ahead. Funny doesn't have to be mean, Dick said, and he never understood that. Once again, Dick didn't say the name directly, but he gave a clue. He wore glasses, smoked like a chimney, and thought being nasty was an art form. Some guessed Don Rickles. Others suspected a certain Saturday Night Live alum known for his bitterness. But Dick simply smiled and said, "If he hears this from wherever he is now, I hope he knows. I never laughed." That was the second, and now came the third. This one wasn't a bully. No, this one broke his heart. The friend who betrayed me. "I trusted him," Dick whispered. "He was like a brother to me." They had started together in the early days, back when live TV was still a gamble, and every laugh from the audience felt like gold. They clicked instantly. Both were rising stars, both were clean-cut, and both wanted to change the face of comedy. We even shared an apartment once, back in the 50s, ate canned soup, wrote jokes all night. They went on to appear in the same sitcom lineup. Sometimes they'd guest star in each other's shows. Fans loved seeing them together. But then, something changed. Dick had just landed the Dick Van Dyke Show. It was his big break, life-changing, and he couldn't wait to tell his friend. He looked me in the eye and said, "You stole that role from me." Dick was shocked. It wasn't true. The producers had never even considered him, but he didn't care. From that day on, he stopped speaking to me. What hurt Dick the most wasn't the silence. It was what followed. He started telling people I was difficult, that I was fake, that I was just lucky, not talented. Those rumors hurt Dick deeply. In an industry where reputation meant everything, it was like a slow poison. Some projects disappeared. Others never got off the ground. "I would have forgiven him," Dick said. "All he had to do was call." But the call never came. The friend died years later. Dick went to the funeral. No one knew I was there. I stood in the back. I cried, even though he hated me in the end. Dick didn't give any clues this time. "No hints," he said. "This one still hurts too much." 3 names down, 3 more to go. But the next one wasn't a man. It was the only child actor Dick Van Dyke said he ever truly disliked. And the story would leave fans stunned.